Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We appreciate you joining us again for another round of FitNation Lunch and Learn. Today, Derek and I are joined by Kate Golden. Kate, thank you so much for taking the time in order to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this.
Yeah, we're honored to actually have you with us here today. I personally have known Kate for I think right around 6 years now, Kate, where I've had the chance in order to first meet you, see you present at IHRSA, and every time I go to IHRSA, I'm always impressed by the accolades that the organization and yourself get, but also just always hear the words of wisdom that you're sharing because you're usually speaking there as well, and you're always educating myself and many of the people who are in the audience as well. So we appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And for those of you who this is the first time you're meeting Kate and talking to her, Kate, maybe you can start off with a little bit of a background and let people know a little bit about how long you've been working in fitness, how you landed, and your time in fitness as a career.
Sure. So I've only been in fitness for 7.5 years. Before that, I worked in human resources. So that's what my degree's in, and my master's degree is in human resource development. And I worked in the city for about 8 years before I had a baby. And I got my hair done at the salon inside of the Newtown Athletic Club. And the stylist was Lori. She's amazing and so much fun. And I used to tell her about my workday or my trips that I was going on. I did a ton in training and development and employee engagement at my last company. So I administered all the satisfaction surveys and engagement surveys, and then created action plans with the operators to improve company culture and profits. And she would always be like, "You need to come here and work with us." And so, it's kind of just like your hairstylist is almost like your therapist and your best friend. So, I would always kind of was like, yeah, maybe one day. And then randomly I was at work, and I had my son, and I got to work from home 2 days a week. And when I had to come back after my 3 months of maternity leave, and then I came into the office 2 days a week and took off on Fridays. And my boss finally said after 6 months that I had to, come back into the office full time. And I just did not want to come, like that commute was too far for me with a baby. So I wrote our owner an email, and I never met him, didn't know really much about him. But I watched the Newtown Athletic Club grow, it's been around for 42 years now, almost 43. And it was 15,000 square feet, and now it's 250,000 square feet. And so I kind of like could watch that through my childhood growing up. And so I wrote him an email and I said, "You're the Steve Jobs of the fitness industry. You give us what we want before we even know we want it. You should hire me." and then it took a little bit of time. He was in the process of building our 4-acre pool complex. And it was growing, and I used to walk with my baby carriage and see it and was like, wow, this place is getting huge. You really should hire someone in HR, because he didn't have someone at the time. And then he brought me in and interviewed me and offered me the job. So it was definitely just a job at that time. I wasn't looking necessarily for a career and in the fitness industry. I really, when I think about it, and when you pose that question on me, I thought the fitness industry really chose me. I'm not a fitness buff, right? Like I can't wait to work out for an hour a day or 2 hours a day. That's not my background. I wasn't a collegiate athlete. But Kim Levins, who was the salon director at the time, my very first day, I went to go walk out into the gym. And if you haven't Googled Newtown Athletic Club yet, you should, because it's humongous. And I remember walking out onto the mezzanine that overlooks the fitness center. And I was so overwhelmed, and I had anxiety, and I just hopped on an elliptical and just started moving my legs. Right. I'm the 80% of American, right, who don't walk into your gym, who don't feel like they belong. And so the next day, Kim said, "Hey, come down and work out with me." And I was like, on the fitness floor, like it is scary down there. And she was like, no, just come down and meet me. I'll be on the fitness floor. Like I'll meet you at the desk. And I was like, okay. So I went down, met her at the desk, and she's not she's not a big extrovert or anything. She's probably more introverted actually. But she took the time to show me equipment, to work me out. We did the same workout the whole time. She introduced me to other members. She introduced me to other employees. She did exactly what we want every one of our employees to do with every one of our members. And from that day, I just felt comfortable on a gym floor. And I was like, wow, like that's all it takes is that one person to just grab your hand, show you the fitness floor. And I knew from then on that I want everybody to have this experience and I want to be a part of this. And it really was like that little moment where I was like, I can belong, even though I was an overweight teenager. So I was, over 200 pounds, wasn't very fit, didn't exercise, ate lots of Oreos. And nothing wrong with an Oreo. But anyway, so it's not like in my blood to be like, I want this industry. But when I felt as if I belonged, I really knew I wanted that to be a part of my career. And so at that time I was the HR person. People called me the HR lady. Jim said I could call myself whatever I wanted. So I called myself director of people operations because I love Google, and Google has a people operations officer. And so, but then our pool complex was opening and there wasn't really a strategy or a plan. And Jim's biggest concern with me is that I worked in corporate America for 8 years. And so he was like, don't get all corporate on me. We're still like this mom and pop, even though we're a big company. And I was like, all right, well, I need an Excel spreadsheet that says what our action items and plans are to open this pool complex. And so, I made a hiring fair and trainings and protocols and manuals to train all the employees on, how the operation should run. So I made it a little corporate for them, but it helped us execute and really open up that pool complex. And it went well. Every year we opened, I oversaw the pool complex all of a sudden. So he said, it was really random one day. He looked at me and said, I think I know you're HR, but you're just going to run the pool complex. And I was like, okay. I'm like, run it? Like, I'm not really, like, I was never in operations. I was never in sales. And he was like, well, I just want someone I trust. He's like, and for whatever reason, he's like, I trust you. And I was like, okay. So I did. And I opened it and I ran it for probably 2 summers. And then we gave it over I trained someone else and then they took it over. And then I stopped doing it because our fitness director left. And again, my background's not fitness. I was never a personal trainer. And I said, I think we should recruit. We're the Newtown Athletic Club. We are known in the industry. Let's go and get someone, from wherever they are. Let's recruit them like the best personal training director out there. We should have the best because we're the best club. And he was like, yeah, let's do that. Then the next day, I'll never forget again. He's on he works out every single day from 9 to 11 a.m. And he was on the step mill. He calls me over. He's like, I figured it out. I know who's going to run personal training. I was like, oh, awesome. He's like, you. I was like, what? Me? I was like, what do you mean me? Like, I don't know how to pick up a barbell. I was just like, so he's like, you can do it. He's like, you're always doing trainings and teaching managers how to manage. Like, you manage, just do what you teach people to do. And I was like, okay. So I went to tons of webinars like this, and he took me to IHRSA, like my first, I think it was like my 3rd week there. He was going to IHRSA and he said, are you coming to IHRSA with us? It was in Vegas. And I said, no, I actually don't know what IHRSA is. And he looked at his assistant and said, Nancy, buy her a ticket. She's going to come with us to IHRSA. And I was like, I have a 6-month-old baby. I breastfeed. Like, what do you mean? So he let me go for a shorter amount of time, but it really was a game changer. It was really cool to be there. I went to HR conferences before, but the fitness industry is incredible. Like, I was in long-term care before, so more of the pharma industry, and everyone's super secret there, right? They don't share with other companies what they do. They're not even their employee handbook. And in the fitness industry, I remember reading an article in CBI, and it was about the Eagle Award at Gainesville Health and Fitness. I thought it was awesome. And so I just called the club and asked for Joe Cirilli. If you don't know who Joe Cirilli is, he's like an Inc. 100 Entrepreneur of the Year. I didn't know, and I just called and said, can I talk to Joe Cirilli? The man took my call and probably gave me a half hour of time. And wow. That, like, he's a true reflection of how this industry works, is that, people share. And if you have a question, now I get emails and phone calls, and it's like an honor to give back and share some of the knowledge that I've picked up over the years. But that's really like how I kept on growing in our industry. And I took on, after I did personal training, then I oversaw different areas of the club, from group exercise to our sports performance, then to wellness. And then I launched like our registered dietitian, and then hired them. And then now I'm actually at the Horsham Athletic Club. So Jim owns two clubs, the Newtown Athletic and then the Horsham Athletic. And so when we opened up from COVID, he named me the sanitation czar, which means I got the protocols to open up our clubs, to make sure we're doing everything right, cleaning, distancing, all that good stuff. And he's really funny and called me the sanitation czar, and it's really stuck. It's actually like a really good opener when you've been doing all these Zoom networking meetings with like your local chamber of commerce, because I'll write that as my title, like sanitation czar. And so everyone always is like a good opener. What is a sanitation czar? So when after we opened up the NAC, the Horsham Athletic Club opened up 2 weeks later. And so I came down here and helped them open, and he asked me if I would be interested in just overseeing it and running it, or helping to do so. There's a team down here. So I'm really kind of consulting with them and helping them get it up and running. It would be more exciting if it wasn't COVID times, because it's really hard to like get people in your door right now. But the people who want, we're getting them. So it's going pretty well, I think. And that's where I am. That's where I am today.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you had the opportunity in order to wear a whole bunch of different hats, and maybe hats that at the time you weren't even comfortable with doing, but you just jumped in and tried something new that you haven't experienced before. And I'm sure, obviously, like I know the success that you've had within your career, because I mean, it just listening to you speak and learning from you within the industry, you can see all of the accomplishments. But when you're jumping into something new, I'm sure you made some mistakes as you were going through and kind of hitting these new roles. What were some of the mistakes that you made early on when you started within your career at the NAC, and some of the learnings from this?
So I would say my biggest mistake is always trying to do everything myself. So in order to I learned through the course of time that you don't physically have to be in the building for all 18 hours that your club is open. And if you do, then you have a bigger problem. And so in the beginning, I was like nonstop. I was always at the club. I was always working. I never felt as if I don't know why. I just like always felt as if I had to take ownership. Especially when we were starting something new, I had to do every single step. I do personally still like doing every step in a project, so I can learn what I expect of an employee. I was taught that at my first job. My first mentor and boss, she always wanted us to do every job. So being in HR, you don't always understand the operations as well, because your degree is on, how to motivate people, how to do performance reviews, and a ton of legal, and keeping your workplace lawful, basically. And so she had us shadow and actually work in each of the different areas. So I was shadowing a pharmacist and learning all about being a pharmacist, and then learning about a pharmacy technician, and and shadowing all those jobs and seeing the intricacies of them. And so when I came to the Newtown Athletic Club, I did that again. So I remember Jim saying we needed to save payroll. Let's cut some of our, we're getting complaints in Medallia about cleaning. Let's cut back on some of our cleaning team, because they must not be cleaning right. And so then I said, well, let me go and work with the cleaning team. So I went, and he actually told me that this is what he did. So I learned from him, of course. He's a great teacher. And he actually started his first business with cleaning. So when he first got the Newtown Athletic Club, he gave his cleaning team off. It's only 15,000 square feet. And he cleaned the entire building top to bottom by himself. And he timed himself. So he timed like how long it takes me to do this glass, how long does it take me to do this wall, to clean all the to clean all the balls. And so he timed himself. And then the next day he brought the cleaning team back and said, hey, it took me this long to do it. And so this is your profession. So you should be better than me, right? So you should be able to do this faster and better quality. And so he cleaned with them the next day, right? So he did it himself. Then he cleaned with them, so we could see like how they're doing it, what their efficiencies are. Is there a better way to do things, and teach them along the way? And then he made them so good that he ended up calling the other businesses in the businessplex and saying, hey, give your cleaning team the night off and give mine a chance. And if you like that, I'll do it for free tonight. And if you like it, then you could hire us. So he kind of started his own business
Oh,
that
wow.
way. And that was the first business he sold, which was a really cool story. That was one of the first businesses. It totally showed his entrepreneurial spirit, but also it showed like leadership skills. And I really took that in, that I loved that he did it himself. Then he worked with them, and then they were good to go, like fly off on their own. And so that's what I did with the housekeeping team, with him actually not even telling me that's what I should do. You know, he told me that story on the trip to Vegas, actually, when I went to my first IHRSA trip. But I took that and really applied it, and we ended up hiring more housekeepers. But since I took the time to actually clean with them, I did it all week, and we timed ourselves and made us a little bit more efficient. But when I went back to Jim and said, hey, listen, we're actually here until 1 a.m. If we hire 2 more people, we could get everyone done and out, and it would be more efficient. And so, you know, he hired 2 more people. So it was cool that, you know, you feel like you have to do it all yourself, but then, which is probably one of the things that I learned the most, is that I have to be able to trust other people to help and to execute. And I'm not doing myself any justice, and I'm also not a good manager if I have to always be in the building. And so that took me a little bit of time, though, a couple years maybe. Jimmy said actually send me home. Like, you have to go home. You need to hire someone to help you. And I didn't I made myself a goal that I had to hit $1 million in personal training before I would hire someone else to help me. That's what I did. I hit $1 million and then hired like another fitness administrator. So it was fun.
Oh, that's really cool. I think, you know, with both you and Jim's story as well, they're just one of the things that it seems that you guys are both passionate about is problem solving and being able to prove it to yourself and then go on and improve that process and teach others in order to do the same.
Yeah, I love a good problem. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love trying to, you know, finding a problem and then being able to fix it and then, or make it more efficient. So sometimes it's not even a big problem, but sometimes we just do things because that's the way we've always done them. So it's fun when you're the fresh eyes and you're thinking, I wonder why, but instead of just like jumping in and changing something, I think it's super important to learn the backstory, learn the why, learn how they're doing it and their thought process before you jump in and change something. So I thought that was really beneficial too, to problem solving. Is first you kind of have to, you know, learn the reasons and learn the strategy that someone else already has before you just come in and think you have the answers. But I do love good problem solving.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the 7 years you've had a chance in order to solve a bunch of problems. Is there something in particular that you would look on and think as, you know, your biggest accomplishment in the 7 years that you've been in the industry?
My biggest accomplishment? Well, my first one was getting our PT department was like 650,000 a year, or 700,000 maybe, somewhere around there, maybe somewhere around 700,000 before I took over. And then we got it to 1 million in that year that I took over, which was Jim wanted to get it to 1 million. Now he wants to get to 2 million. So we got to like 1.3, and then I think there's also my other mistake was firing too many trainers at once. That HR background kind of got me. So when you didn't show up on time and I wrote you up and then fired you, it was like, I don't regret necessarily. I always say people fire themselves. Like, we don't actually fire you. You know, it's your actions or your behaviors. And it's not even you as a person, right? It's just a particular action that can be changed and you can be successful somewhere else. I like cut out 30 grand and we actually right before COVID finally got to the number like from 2 years ago, which still isn't even a good number. So it was a rough kind of 2 years. I did good for 5 and then that was a little rough for a couple of years, but and then I was spinning my wheels to try and get that money back, because it was like 30,000 a month. And when you hire a new trainer, it's a huge process to, you know, get them up and running and making the same amount of money, especially in the suburbs. I feel like it's different when you're in the city, because a lot of times there's another trainer at another club that you can get with a full book, or that's just like in the business in the city, versus the suburbs I feel is a little bit hard. So that, I would say, getting the button in our electronic medical record system that is in our healthcare network, that was a huge accomplishment that I was so excited when it was accomplished, to that physicians now can click a button, and instead of referring a drug to fix your blood pressure, that you can actually select the NAC wellness program that is really cool. And then my last one are the CDC guidelines. It's been a true honor to have calls with the CDC, to present with them last month, and then I present with them again on September 1st. So writing the guidelines to help open the fitness industry, and really just working with the CDC directly. So again, it's not for like our particular club, we have stronger guidelines, but to really help the CDC see like the minimum of, of any, so that any mom and pop can open and recover from COVID-19. And it took a different mindset, besides the fact that the NAC has, we've been successful for a while. We can invest, and we have the funds to invest in different, say, technology and electrostatic sprayers, but to really look at the guidelines and say, hey, you don't need that $2,000 sprayer for you to open, right? You just need to make sure you have disinfectant and you understand how disinfectant works. And it was cool just to see that how they actually operate and how they write guidelines for the entire country, and not for even a particular kind of club, right? So we had to write guidelines, not just for a boutique, not just for a big box club like the Newtown Athletic Club, but the guidelines had to be written for everyone in our industry, which is normally more consistent in, say, a restaurant industry than it is in the health club space. So I got 3. Is that okay?
Yeah. The more, the better. Awesome. And then, yeah, maybe we can, what we want to do is kind of switch gears a little bit. We talked a lot about, some of these accomplishments, a bit about your background, but also one of the segments that we like to do is called an operations deep dive, where we have a chance in order to go through either a struggle that you had an opportunity to overcome with your team, or an accomplishment and a goal that you were able to, set out and strive for and actually achieve. And then talking through that in a little bit more detail, so that we can kind of live through that journey and process with you as you went through and executed it, and so others can learn from that experience as well.
Sure. So when we talk about our operations, my focus over the past couple of years has been more on wellness. And like with COVID, we would think that we would stay open. We are essential to your health, and all these gyms were closed down. And because they're seen as gyms, they're seen as where you go to lose weight for your wedding, and more for that physical appearance. And so over probably just about 2 years ago, we started really focusing on that branding, and we really wanted us to be seen as the experts in health and wellness, and to be, we've always believed that we are exercise is medicine, since the beginning of time, since before gym even opened the gym or became part of the Newtown Athletic Club. And so we always believe that. And I still remember 7 years ago when I was first hired, Jim telling the sales team, don't sell any more memberships unless we're gonna fulfill our promise to make their life better. And he was serious. He wanted us to make sure that we weren't just selling memberships to sell them. He really wanted to help people reach their goals and to live that healthy life, and it not be a like one-time effort. And sometimes I think about that for me, when you think about a member coming in 1.2 times per week, I remember when I first took over the PT department, I met with every trainer individually. And Roger Adams, one of our trainers who's been there forever, he is phenomenal. And he said, well, you can't look at it as an event or something that you do once in a while. He's like, you have to eventually change your mindset. So it's like brushing your teeth. He's like, do you ever think about not brushing your teeth in the morning? He's like, every morning, every night, you just go. It's like what you do, right? You go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth. He's like, it's just part of your everyday life. He's like, and that's really what we have to get fitness to be for people. And if we can get that, then we're really making a difference. And so it's really taking experts like Roger, and that are probably, the tons of experts that are on this call, and prove to a healthcare system that we are the experts, that we are part of your plan for your patient. So if you're coming for your well visit, that we want to be part of that well visit. Our the data that we have, so like our MyZone data, does your doctor have that? Did we help them with RD consultations? How can we be a part of that visit, or how can we be a part of that healthcare continuum? And so that was one of the goals, is that we had a marketing agreement with our healthcare system, and they were the doctors who came in to do the lectures. Their name is on our wall, but we didn't want it to be a name on a wall, right? We wanted it to be this partnership. And so everyone was talking about the prep program and how you can get referrals, and it was this little piece of paper. So we tried that for a while, and I was like, doctors needed easy, right? Like I want the easy button, right? If it's easy, I do it. But when I have to do something extra, or I have to think like, oh wait, I have this prescription from the Newtown Athletic Club that I can give you, the doctor has to think about that program all the time. And when you're not there and you don't have that strong of a relationship with every single physician in the network, it was kind of hard. And then it was also hard when the patient got the prescription and then they took it home, right? Because I still didn't get that contact information, right? Now I'm relying on that patient to actually, again, come into our doors or to reach out. So I really want it to be a button in the system. That was like my goal. And I didn't really know why. I just was like, I need to be a button. The physician needs to just click, go to the neck. High blood pressure, neck can help you. So I looked at it as if, how can I build this relationship further and almost be a vendor to our healthcare system? So I was looking up different events that the healthcare system goes to. And there was a primary care physician conference where you could be a vendor. And so I was like, all right, like, let's go try it out. Like, I didn't really know, but I just figured I'll try. So I registered, just like a virtual gym registers to be a vendor at IHRSA, I registered to be a vendor at this conference. And so I set up my conference table just like I would at what we're used to in the fitness industry is going to like a wellness fair, or like at an employer's wellness fair. And so that's kind of what we do, or market day in your community. And so I set up the same thing just at a conference. And then inside of there were all the vendors were Aetna, so all of the insurance companies. So Aetna, IBX, medical device sales. So that's who the other vendors were, and we were the only gym. So we definitely stuck out. And then I went to the education series. So they had education just like IHRSA does, and the vendors were invited, but normally the vendors hung out at their tables and just were on their phones or working on their computer. And so I went to every session with our registered dietitian, Lisa. And so the two of us, I mean, I love, I'm not gonna lie, if you ask me what I love to learn and I love to dance. They're like my two things that I could do every day. And so I was super interested. I went, I took notes and was really engaged in what they were saying. And so it was funny because then they came directly to our table and they were just like, why are you guys here? And you went to the sessions, vendors never come to the sessions. What are you, what are you trying to get out of this? And I was like, I'm just like, I want to connect with you, right? Because I want you to refer into me. And that was really like my first connection was like, oh my goodness, well, we have all these health programs, not just gym memberships. We have programs where you can enroll in. We have a registered dietitian on staff. So someone who needs to lose weight, it's not just about taking pills, or someone who has high blood pressure or diabetes or pre-diabetic. We really should be your partner. Like, I'm trying to be your partner. So I was just really blunt. I want to be your partner. And then I went to the dinner, which no other vendor went to, which was really funny because it was just physicians but the vendors were invited and you could buy a ticket. So I went. And so that's sometimes what I do is just go. I found the CEO who ended up being a member at our club, which was even better. And, but just think about when you're at a conference or you're hanging out at the, local bar and you talk to people. And so it wasn't a sit down here, let me propose, like, let me give you a proposal, a business proposal so that you can give me more memberships. I was just talking with them like, oh, how's it going? I'm like, this conference is great, chit chatting with them a little bit. And then I, swung in there, I'll never forget it. I said, I really want to be a button in your system. And he was like, what? I said, like, we are the answer to your patients. Like, we can keep them healthy, and you get more money now if you keep them healthy versus if they have to come back into your office, because the healthcare is changing. So all these physicians and hospital networks need to keep people healthy because they get paid for keeping people healthy now. If you come back to them again for the same problem, that means you're not doing their job, right? So there's an incentive for healthcare systems. So I was like, we are the answer. We can be partners. We already are wellness partners. We have a relationship with your hospital network. I said, we really need the relationship with your physicians and build that relationship. And he looked at me and he was like, well, let's get it done. You're 100% right. He's like, I exercise. He's like, let's get it done. Granted, he said, let's get it done. And then it's a hospital network. So it still took a full like 9 to 10 months to get it in. So there's a ton of persistence, reaching out, just checking in. Or I remember like sending them when we would have like in the summertime. I used to email like their team and say, oh, we have Friday Night Live. Like there's music tonight if you guys want to come. Like just like not just bugging them about, you know, I want to be a prescription in your electronic medical record system. It was building a relationship just like anything else in life. And asking them how their vacation was and asking them, you know, every time. So it was like you have to do all those little things to build a relationship and be genuine and actually care. That was really cool. We really wanted to take that partnership and it not be a name on the wall, and it be a true partnership where now we can give that information back. So our registered dietitian will write it up and then we'll deliver it to the physician's office as well. So we are part of the Genovix network, and that is a healthy care program. And so we also offer that to all their patients, where we bill the insurance companies for 3 registered dietitian appointments. And that's really how we pay for their program. And then hopefully they join as a club, but we actually, like if you don't join the club, totally cool. Now we actually have virtual options, which is awesome. But we also would say, like, here's a plan for you to do at home if they wanted to do it at home. If they wanted to go to another club because it was closer for them, that would be fine too. You know, we still count it as like we're just trying to change lives and build that partnership with the healthcare system. So the biggest problem was getting that credibility, and I think really hiring the registered dietitian helped too, because she's another clinician. So for the physician's eyes, for them to refer to a clinician versus them thinking, oh, I'm just going to give a gym membership. Right? Like they kind of, you know, they're not really always that into that until you build that relationship. I know there's tons of organizations that are successful with it too. But for us, it just wasn't working. And then it actually got it right in like November probably was when we first got the EMR button. And then we started getting regular. We got over 100 in our first 2 months. It was awesome. And then of course, COVID. So now we're getting some new marketing for the physicians to show them, because we do telehealth with the R Day. So we're marketing that now to the physicians and doing some newsletters for their patients. So we're trying to build that online business with the physicians now. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of perseverance, just like anything else. You know, you got to keep on asking.
Wow, it sounds like a huge undertaking though as well. You know, I wouldn't even know where to start. So
yeah.
It's incredible.
Most of the time, you just have to guess. Like, who can I talk to? Somebody knows the answer. Like, I'm all about just calling people and asking, and, you know, reaching out to people and saying, you know, ACAC has a phenomenal prep program. So it was like asking ACAC, talking with Chris Crater and his team, and finding out what they do well and how you can work together. So it was fun. I think it's more of like just taking that leap and doing something that I was super uncomfortable being at a physician, especially the dinner. It was like I just sit at the table and just talk with all these physicians who are talking about their practices, because for them it's work. So, you know, just as if like you're out to dinner with your work team, you normally tend to talk a little bit about work at least. And so they were talking about like a surgery they just did, and I was like,
yeah, what a hard thing to jump in on.
Yeah, but you know, you fake it till you make it.
Cool. So just real quick, I'm not sure if it's the same for others, but Kate, your video for me is frozen. Kaylin, is it the same for you? Or can you see your video okay?
No, I don't. It's good for me. She
Okay,
stopped for a little bit, but I saw her blink.
No worries.
Good to
So
go.
I actually want to take it a little bit different direction, Kate. So I think if some others have been on some previous podcasts that we've had, they know that I like to ask some futuristic questions, and I think it's really interesting to get your point of view. I think being from such a well-recognized organization, and then obviously you for your individual efforts in the industry are also well-recognized. So I'm sure that whether it's been through your talks with other industry experts or through people trying to you know, provide their services to you, make sales, get you to collaborate, etc. I'm guessing you've had a lot of strategic discussions over the past few weeks and months. So I guess I'd be curious to know kind of where you, from these conversations, you think the industry is going. I know that's quite a broad question, but You're the
No.
person for the job.
Thanks. To be honest with you, I think this is gonna, I mean, obviously we have tons of cancellations and freezes. They're still coming in today, and that can really wear on you because you kind of feel like you're defeated. But I do think that there's a light to the end of the tunnel. I think personally, during this time when I was home, I kind of set myself my own little goals. And I know a lot of stats are saying that obesity is on the rise and mental health issues are on the rise. And, there's so many different problems that are on the rise that the health club industry is the solution. So I think that once we gain that credibility and we get the government to allow us to open back up in a higher capacity, because a lot of it is media, right, saying that we shouldn't be open or that we're not safe, and we 100% are safe. And that I think that we'll be on that upswing. That I also think that there's a huge population, especially all these millennials coming up. They were already spending a good $40 on a spin class. They were investing in their avocado toast and their healthy living. So I still think that they're coming up and they found ways to still exercise, right? The fitness, if you wanted to buy a pair of dumbbells, that you would spend so much money to buy dumbbells during this shutdown, because all of a sudden there's a sparse of fitness equipment and you would pay a pretty penny for it. And so people are paying a pretty penny. So they are building their fitness gyms at home, right? I bought a SoulCycle bike, which now I ride my bike every single day. I'm obsessed with it and I love it. And if I don't, I still feel as though like I need to get out and walk. So like I walked last night at like 10 o'clock after I got done work, and I just went for a quick 20-minute walk because it makes me feel good that I did that. And I just think that as much as obesity is on the rise, and it definitely is, and people are losing their jobs, and so that's stress. And I think that at the same time, I'm finding ways to exercise every day. And I think that this almost might help us go to Roger's point, that how can you get fitness in every day and it be like brushing your teeth? And I think that people are going for walks more often, and that the health club industry is still, we are going to thrive after this, because we want our members to be healthy every day, not just when they're in our doors, right? So it's like when people say, are you going to sell your old spin bikes to your members? Yeah, because that spin class at home isn't really going to replace you coming into the gym with all those people. Even a live Peloton class. I know Peloton's amazing. Their stock is going crazy. They're really, it's going well. But at the same time, I'm at a new gym. So I'm at the Horsham Athletic Club. I'm used to going to the Newtown Athletic Club with my girlfriends, and we work out together. And I exercise at home. Not having my girlfriends to work out with is really sad, right? Like I want that community feel. So now I'm gonna I have to build my own little community here again. But that community, your bike at home, your workout equipment at home, all of this is never going to take the place of the community that you have at your gym. So I really think that this also pushed the fitness industry to think differently. It's not just about your building, right? And it's all about relationships. So, profit might be down this year, your revenue's down this year, but your relationship with your members, checking in. We called every single one of our 5,200 billing units. 54 at the time, right? So 5,400, we called every one of them, and all we were doing is calling to say, how are you? Are you doing okay? Do you need anything? We have virtual classes online. Do you know about them? So it was really to me, even my friends, that's what I'm doing, right? I'm calling into saying hey, how are you? Are you okay? Because that's really what we all need right now. And I think that when you do that from a gym, I think that we're just getting started, and there's going to be an uptick because people are seeing that we're also part of that healthcare continuum, right? Your small mom and pop gym, your Orange Theories, your big clubs, we're all part of keeping us healthy and safe. And I think that more people are going to value us. And I also think that, I think the value would actually increase personally of what you'll pay, especially if the 6 feet of space stays like it's going to need to. It's going to, it'll pop up. It's going to need to increase because less people will fit into those studios with those space requirements. So I really think that, Forbes actually, I think, just sent out an email earlier this month talking about how it's going to be the golden era of fitness, and that it's really going to, I think that doctors will keep us thinking that we're part of their patient care. I really think that's where we're all going to start going, because we took it so hard that we weren't essential. I always say that when I reflect back, it's crazy to think of, our industry was like, we're essential. Like, how can you not think that? But the rest of the world was like, you are not essential. Why do you think that? Right? It was like we had to look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, why? Like, why do people not view that? And how do we not? Because we all think we are, and we are. But how do we get other people to feel that way? What do we have to do to do that? And I think that is really where the gyms are going to go, is more to that healthcare continuum. I think it's 5 years ago, I went to a conference for the Medical Fitness Association, and Emmett Williams from My Zone was one of the speakers. And he said back then that we really need to figure out as an industry how we're going to be the bricks and clicks. Like, how are we going to have a brick and a click model? I always look when I'm doing research of like what the newest trends are. I look to the retail industry a lot and the restaurant industry, right? And I look to see like, what are they doing? And because eventually we'll catch up, our industry will catch up to them. And so, for example, Nordstrom's, when you shop inside there, they've had all these little boutiques. So they've had Kate Spade boutique inside, they've had the Tory Burch inside, they have all these little boutiques inside of their big, huge box, right? And so now for the Newtown Athletic Club, we did that, right? So we put little boutiques inside of our club. And not to say it's still the same membership. It's more of making you feel like you see that brand and make you feel that brand before you even enter the doors. And retail did it first. So I always look to them to see, hey, what are going to be the trends? And that was the example that Emmett used, was you have to be careful. You can't just go out and be an online brand, right? You have to make sure that you do it right, and then it follows your values, your brand, your mission. So when you looked at Nordstrom, for example, they were that high-end retailer that you would go in and they didn't just hand you your bag over top of the counter. They always go to the side when you purchase and they hand it to you directly. They come around and then they hand you your brown bag, or your not brown bag, that's Bloomingdale's, but they always go around to the side because the customer service and give you your bag. That was just their service. They're known for their customer service. And so
sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I was just saying, so online, they have to make sure their service is there. So they do little videos for their clothes. And someone goes and shows you, does a little video, what's it good for. The return process is super easy. You can return anything on store, in the store, or through the mail for free, right? So they had to make sure that their online presence was just as upscale and a great experience as your in person. And so that was the example that Emmett used and said, listen, we need to figure that out, but you can't be a Newtown Athletic Club who are a high-end fitness club, and then we can't give you a lower-end experience. So you really need to figure out like how to do both. And I think that's something that we quickly had to do real quick. That everyone in the industry was like, here's Facebook classes, here's Zoom classes, here's everything. And we had to jump. But now I think people are really going to start strategizing on how to do it right, and how to really align their brand with it. So I think that's going to become a huge sector for us, is really doing both. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that it's just going to make us stronger and have a stronger reach. Like, think about how we only have 20% or less than in our doors. But like, now we don't even have to get you in our doors. Right? We just have to get you to open an app, or we just have to get you to open that Zoom, and like we can be in your living room. And I think that that's really, really helpful too.
Yeah, I think those are really powerful trends too. I know Michelle Wong at Active Wellness, she's also been a big proponent of bringing in the medical aspect. And I think another interesting point was actually a question from the audience. You already touched upon it. Is it appears that they were actually an employee at a large commercial facility, and they basically had concerns about the future of it. So I think your kind of example of thinking outside of the box and going into other industries, like the Nordstrom idea, and how you're managing to bring in kind of like those boutique areas to your center, I think's pretty powerful stuff. I guess another question I would follow up with you is, because you mentioned a lot about trends. One thing that's one of the audience had asked us before is basically they're overwhelmed with trends at the moment and they don't know where they can specifically go to maybe get the good ones. So do you have a recommendation for resources you would utilize to, hey, get past the fads, go to and try to find some expert opinions on trends in future services?
So we always have the trend list, right? So ACSM always puts out your top trend list for fitness. So I always look for their list, and then IHRSA and like Club Solutions, they normally publish it for us to see. So like wearable technologies has been on the trend list, the #1 spot for, I don't know, the last, I'll make it up if I say it, so a couple years, right? Maybe 4 years, so 5 years, could be more, I don't know, but it's definitely a hot trend. And then, small group training is always a trend, and certifications are always a trend. So I think when you look at fitness trends, that's one way. But again, personally, I like to look outside of our industry when I'm looking at the trends, right? Because I think that I kind of know that top 10 list, it doesn't change too often. This company Thrive, they do small group training. They were here the other day, and they just made a good point, was that, like a bicep is a bicep, or a bicep curl is a bicep curl, right? So no one's coming up with the latest and greatest. Not often are you coming up with a new move. A squat is a squat. So it's not that much in creating new movements. It's what you do with those movements and how you coach those movements. And so I think when you look at trends, when we're always looking inside of our industry, I think we tend to miss the boat a little bit. I think we have to look outside of our industry to find out, look at healthcare. What is healthcare doing? Like, what are their trends? Because I thought it was, when I was at that physician conference, they do trends. We are nowhere near their trend list. Working with health clubs is not on their list of what they're, foreseeing in their vision. But working with Amazon or Walmart, working with the health clubs or with the healthcare systems, and Amazon's now doing prescriptions, and they're looking at those big players. Who else is CVS going to buy, and who else is Amazon going to buy? Who else is Walmart? What are these big conglomerates going to buy? And so that's where they're looking. So I really thought about that and said, wow, you're my trend. Trying to make my relationship with you, working more with the healthcare system, and I wasn't on theirs. Which I think when you reflect on that, you're like, all right, well, how do I get to be your trend? And then, what are your trends? What's happening in healthcare? So they're going after the older population and long-term care. Our hospital network is actually going into real estate, where they're buying land, having townhomes and larger homes with in-law suites, with a physician referral, right, or a physician office right in there. And then they have the nurses who go to your home. And so that's where they're going. They're going to have a robot that can stay with grandma in her house at all times, so that the robot can check on you or on grandma for you. It's crazy, right? So that's where they're going. They're checking on our elderly. So what are we doing for our elderly? We're all about wearable devices. And not my grandma, well, God bless her, love her, but she already passed away. But she wasn't wearing a wearable device, within her last couple of years. So I do think that, like, all right, well, they're worrying about our elders. What are we doing? Are we on top of those trends? And then you look at retail, right? So, or the restaurant industry, and restaurant industries you can tell all the millennials, they're not really going to your chains as much, right? So where they're going to your more, like a unique experience. They're all about that experience. So I never see experience on the fitness industry trends, but to me, that's a huge trend, is that the younger generation coming up, and to be honest, now boomers kind of see that we care about trends or experiences, and they want a piece of that too, right? They want that experience. It's not just that millennials or we want it, right? So I personally think that that's your largest trend, is how do you make every interaction an experience, whether it's online, in person, the phone call, the tour coming in, your experience with your employees, right? Like, how are you making an impact on them and making that experience something memorable that they want to come back to. I don't know if that answered your question, but
that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, we also had some questions come in, Kate, from our audience members before they registered for the webinar today. So maybe we can go through a couple of these as well. So they're not really related questions to each other. So if they seem a little bit unconnected, it's because everybody sent them individually. But there was a couple that I highlighted here that I thought we can go through. So this one comes in from a YMCA. And they asked, what have you done and how have you gone about branching out and exposing yourself personally to outside growth opportunities?
Oh, personally. So I think the best thing is when I go to a conference. So I'm super lucky and blessed to have an organization that believes in continuing education and that sends us to IHRSA. But I first went to the IHRSA Institute, and our company didn't send anyone to the IHRSA Institute yet. So it was new. And so I paid for it myself to go. And I think sometimes we think that our development is in our employer's hands, and that like, oh, my company, I'll hear it from a friend, like, oh, my company doesn't send anybody. And I was like, that's okay. Like, you can still go. I paid for myself to go. And then Jim sends us to, the regular IHRSA. And then he started sending people to the IHRSA Institute because I was like, I think it's amazing. Like, I learned a ton from going there. But I also think like looking outside of the industry. So, and when you're at these events, the key to actually growing, in my opinion, is the one thing that Jim taught us, we're like required to do this, is that at the end of the presentation, we're required to go up and thank them. It's a lot to do a presentation in front of everybody. And at first I was always like, I want to do that too. And then I did it and I was like, that was a lot of stress and anxiety for that 1 hour. and now it gets better. And I used to do trainings in front of like hundreds of people at my last company. So I was very surprised at how much stress I had. So now I understand, like I go up and I thank every single presenter, I give them my card, and then any presentation I went to, I collect all the cards and I get home from IHRSA. Or I start doing it now during IHRSA because I collect too many cards now. But like during IHRSA now, I'll send a thank you. Like, thanks, I loved your session. These are some takeaways. I make sure that they know that I took notes. And then they reach out to you. And that's really how you grow your network, because it's, as you look for different opportunities and keep growing, it's all about, taking advantage of those opportunities. And when someone first asks you and you're first to do something, even present or be a part of a webinar, like your first reaction might not be like, oh, it's kind of scary. Like, I don't know, but just like jump at it and take it. I also think, again, it's important to go outside the industry. So when you go to these events, you always go with a friend or you go with other coworkers, and then you always stick together. So I like to go out and just like go into a group where I know nobody and will just introduce myself. And even though I'm an extrovert, I still get anxiety doing it, but I still do it, right? I just make myself, you push yourself and say like, hi, I'm Kate, I'm from the Newtown Athletic Club. And then I sign up for a ton of different, like even on Facebook, there's this group, it's called, I think they're called the Carnegie, like CARNEGIE. And it's a group on Facebook that's for marketing. And I signed up for their daily emails. Now I'm part of this Facebook group, and there's all these different marketing directors, coordinators, all different levels, and they're always sharing best practices. They ask for feedback. So I really think that, you have to just know that you own your own development. It's no one else's job, and that you have to jump at those opportunities. I sign up for, like, James Clear he wrote the Atomic Habits. And so he has a website, a blog, daily emails. I don't pay for his paid. You can also pay. But I just do all of his free stuff, and I get tons of education just from reading his blogs. And then I take that and actually give it to my team, and I work, a lot of the stuff I get for free from him, I bring back to a team meeting and share it with my team. And that's, developing you, and you can grow your team and make them better. That's a skill set for yourself to actually grow and do too. So yeah, I think that's what I do. Make sure you take advantage and meet new people, go out, do like your Chamber of Commerce. When you sign up for that, go to the actual networking meetings. It always surprises me of how many companies are involved, but then and then how little people actually go, especially now that they're all online and virtual. It is really super awkward. But I still go and show up, and I write down a couple questions. Before I go, I always make sure, like, all right, what could be 2 of my questions I'm going to ask, and then I write them down, and then that's kind of how I go in. I do a little prep work before I go meet somebody, just so that I'm confident in what I'm going to ask, and then let the conversation go from there.
Awesome tips in there. And then we got another question that came in from Club Newtone. So this one here is, what it's written here is, I'm on the member services team and I am the manager of the sales department. I take health and wellness very seriously and live and breathe it. My question is, with this whole COVID thing going on, what are some extra things you suggest to bring the club club members back? We already take and instill proper procedures to ensure our club members feel safe and comfortable in coming to the club. And then she says, thanks for the help and looking forward to learning more.
Well, I'm hoping that someone also shares the answer to get these people back in our doors. We do have pretty high attendance. We have an outdoor pool complex that definitely helps our Newtown Athletic Club. But to get them back in, to be honest with you, I think it's more of like just taking advantage of who's coming in your doors, right? Making sure that you are spending extra time, almost like a re-onboarding. Like, are you calling them? Are you checking on them for their how their experience is? Make sure that you have your safety protocols in place and they know that, but do they feel them? Like, do they feel safe when they're there? And most of the time, because you want them to now refer their friends. And the other thing that I think is super important is all your, even your cancel. So what we are just launching is which I know other clubs already do this, so I might be behind the curve. But it's like an alumni membership. So we didn't have one before. So now I'm like welcoming all of the people who terminated from our club or canceled their membership and welcoming them to an alumni membership. And they will have access to our online programming for 1 month for free. And then after that, they would have to pay, the $10 to access it. And then, but I'm also giving them recipes, workout of the days. And then I haven't like signed anything yet, but I'm just going through the paperwork for a promotion vault where you can incentivize people and do like membership promotions and they get a gift card, because we normally give you cash to the club. And so in my opinion, all the people who canceled or are frozen still love your club. They just aren't comfortable coming in. So I think we have to take advantage of those relationships and say, hey, you can still refer your friends to us. And instead of getting, Horsham Athletic Club dollars or NAC points, that we'll give you a gift card if your friend joins. Because I think about just myself and my friends. Like, my one girlfriend does not go to restaurants. My sister does not. They have infants and they're like more scared of COVID than I am, for example. And so I will go to a restaurant and I'll go outside. I'll sit outside. But so my girlfriend said, like, oh my goodness, there's a new restaurant. You have to try it. She's like, I haven't been. I've been to the location near me. She's like, but you have to go check this restaurant out. And I was like, did you go? She's like, oh, I'm not going to restaurants. I'm like staying home. She's like, but I know you'll love it, right? So she referred me to that restaurant because she loved it, even though she's not going, she's not stepping foot in there. And so I think your alumni members and your frozen members, they're still can be your advocates, but you have to still find a way to connect and incentivize them. And so I thought that the gift card was a great idea because they choose their gift card where they want to go. And I don't know if it's going to work yet, but I'm going to try it. And then to be honest with you, it's all about education, right? So having outdoor programming, having your ambassadors, if you know that, say, old training clients, like have the trainers reach out to them. If there's a following of a group exercise instructor, maybe the group exercise instructor reaches out to them because they have the relationship to find out why. There was a club who just did a survey. I forget who it is, but they just shared it with me. They did their own little survey and just asked the frozen members. So I'm going to do this next and just did a little survey. Hey, why aren't you coming back? Right? It's simple. We love you, you love us, but like, let's do a little survey. We always ask you about your experience. We use Medallia, for example, and we use them for our survey during shutdown too, to get that feedback. And so all of your frozen members, they'll give you feedback. So just ask them. They found that a large percentage of them said, I'm not coming back without a vaccine. And so that might hurt, but then, so then now you're thinking, all right, well, if those people are still not going to come back, my opinion, what we're trying to do is really figure out how we're going to diversify and have different revenue streams. Kids in Pennsylvania are staying home virtually, or doing the hybrid model. My son is already announced that he will be doing virtual school until February, like January 29th. So my kid needs activity, he needs exercise. So we're going to build these programs, and we're doing more fitness programs for them, but that's a new market. And if you're not already doing it or selling memberships directly to like those kids from 5 to 12 years old or 5 to 16, most of us have members that are 16 or 18 or older. But our club, you had to be 18 at the Horsham Athletic Club. And so not anymore. Like now I'm going to come up with now you're going to have to build a program. You won't be able to just utilize the club, but now, so that could be a new revenue stream for us. And then I really think you kind of have to like look at your core competencies and figure out, where else can you branch off to?
Yeah, interesting. As far as how you guys are planning organizationally on this is a bit of a broad question, but how are you guys looking at COVID in terms of taking it into your planning? Because obviously we don't know where it's going to go. What do you kind of look at as the spectrum of best case scenario versus worst case scenario, and how are you guys using that in your planning?
So I really am trying to think of it as that this is not going to be our best year, right? There's no doubting that. And, how can you make the best of it? What is there? What can you do? Making sure, like when we're forecasting or just looking for, I just ask for like my break even number. Like, what do I have to do to break even? And I know it's not all going to come from memberships, right? So what else? And now it's like really having like a whiteboard session and involve your team, involve your frontline employees, and kind of figure out what are going to be those next revenue streams. So that's where I'm doing more. So for the Horsham Athletic Club is figuring out, what else can we do and what else can we cut out. For example, like our front desk isn't that busy. I will normally do the front desk from 10 to 2. It's a really slow time. And I bring my laptop up and I'm actually just working up there. Sometimes I'm doing a tour, and that's just kind of how life is right now. I have like my sales doing most of the front desk too. I'm just like trying to make sure that all of my employees, like I'm training our trainers on how to do sales and the front desk so that we can really diversify ourselves and have a core team who cares and wants us to succeed. And so when you're looking at the NAC, a lot of it is we just did a facility fee so that we can increase our cash flow. And so sometimes people are scared to do a facility fee because of right now. But if they're coming in your doors and they're an active member, they want you to succeed, right? So I think a lot of it, like our owner did a Facebook Live, and Jim just tells them, like, this is where we are. Like, we're a staple in our community, and this is what we're doing to stay around and thrive, or survive this year and then thrive next year. But I really do think that there's going to be a market of people who are going to wait for that vaccine, but there's a whole other market of people who they're not worried about the vaccine. And we have to figure out how to get those people in our doors in different unique ways and really rely on the people who are coming in, who aren't coming in. Don't think that your terminations are terminations and like you don't talk to them anymore, or you only send them promotion or alumni promotions, right? Like figure out how you can really engage them to make you thrive next year. But I think COVID-19 is going to be here until next year sometime, which is really, really scary for our industry. They're saying 30 to 40% are not going to make it out. And a club down the road closed and their member called to find out, to join our club. A tear came to my eye. I was so sad that they were closing. I was like, it really does upset me because, you work so hard to make your club a viable business. You take years to even make it break even. Like this is not an easy game to play, right? There's a lot of sweat equity that goes into building a club and making it survive. But I do think that there's that light at the end of the tunnel. I do think millennials are going to be coming in. I think that we actually do have a large portion of our older members coming back. But I'm starting to look at those programs in health insurance, right? Like we can get health insurance reimbursement for registered dietitians. You can do telehealth. Breaking into that market is not easy, and you need to really be persistent. But I think that there's tons of opportunity to go that wellness side, maybe even rent out some of your space that you normally didn't rent out. We're gonna use a couple of our studios to do the kids programming, versus we didn't have that before at the Horsham Club. And our Newtown Athletic Club is doing like an entire enrichment program where we'll take your kids almost like a summer camp, and we're doing it for, that's going to be a whole other beast. But they're doing basically summer camp through all of fall for our community. And you have to make sure that it's positioned that way. And it is like, we want to be there for the community. We want our kids to be healthy and active and supportive. But you have to be very cautious of your marketing, right? It cannot be about the money at all. Like you need to make sure that your position statement is that you're here for your community, and that, you know, for the working parents and the parents who need childcare, and that we follow all the protocols and guidelines, and you really do. So kids, knock on wood, we did a whole summer camp with 800 kids this summer. It was our highest year ever was our summer camp this year. And we have a rock star team, but they had to follow all the protocols. You know, I kind of wrote them and I worked with the camp in the very beginning, but that team, you have to make sure your team can execute it and that they care enough to make sure that everyone's healthy and safe too. But that's another, you know, figuring out this kid thing, I think is something that the health club industry can really make a difference in, and hopefully make some money to survive. But I do think you're in survival mode right now. So you're cutting your expenses, you're figuring out, you're brainstorming, you're looking for new revenue streams. But I do think that, you know, 2021 will be thriving again.
Yeah, this good insight there as well. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time in order to join us today. A lot of great nuggets of information. I'm definitely going to go back and listen to it again because there was just a lot of great information that we covered. Just want to say thank you so much for taking the time in order to share your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great time. I always love chatting with you, Callan and Derek, and I wish everyone best of luck. You'll get through this. Make sure you know you're not alone and that you are reaching out to the people when you need help. You know, I have to give a shout out to my Thursday night, which is tonight, my Fit family. We started a happy hour. Marissa Hoff and Chris Stevenson did 22 weeks ago. So we're 22 weeks strong that we've been meeting every single Thursday. And we do about an hour of, you know, shop talk, what's going on. We check on everybody, make sure everyone's doing okay, and kind of like a venting of you know, your emotions. And then we have fun and play games, and you know, I love them to death. And I didn't have that before COVID-19, right? We didn't do Zoom happy hours with people in the industry, and these people I became closer with, even though I haven't seen them now for it'll be 2 years next March, right? And I'm closer to them than I ever have been. So it's really cool. So there's some good that comes out of COVID-19.
Yeah, silver lining in there, for sure. Sounds
all right,
good.
thanks.
Thank you guys, and thanks to everybody else who took the chance to join us today. We really appreciate it, and hope you guys also got some nuggets of information.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.